Y'all ever meet someone so smart that it distorts your perception of intelligence? This is what happened to me when I first went to MIT. Now, see, throughout high school, I was always known as the smart kid. But the thing about MIT is that everyone was once the smart kid. Not to brag, and I genuinely mean not to brag, I was valedictorian in high school. I had almost a 99 GPA, and I got a 35 on the ACT, which is like a 1560 on the SAT. But MIT quickly revealed a whole new echelon of academic prowess. I mean, for one thing, half the students there were already valedictorians. I'm not sure if that stat is entirely true. I saw it a long time ago online, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it is. In this video, I want to briefly reflect on my 4 unforgettable years up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and let you guys know what it's like to attend one of the most elite universities in the world. So when I got into MIT, I was really excited. But after my acceptance, I spent days and weeks scouring online forums to see what the school was actually like. Some stuff that I came across, like all their hacks and quirky traditions, seemed really cool. But then, on the other hand, some of the stuff sounded kind of scary. For one, I genuinely do believe students at MIT tend to be more stressed than they are at other schools. The curriculum is really demanding, students are almost studying all the time, and it's really hard to maintain academic and social and work balance. And then I started looking into the kinds of students that go to MIT. Yes, a bunch of smart kids, we already know that. But MIT has a surprising number of Olympiad medalists. These are students who ranked at the national or even the international level for competitions in math, computer science, biology, physics, chemistry, and so on. So given this, I was also pretty worried that MIT would be this hyper-competitive, cutthroat environment. Which brings me to reflection number 1. MIT was a lot more collaborative than I expected. During my first semester of school, I was enrolled in a course called 801. Introductory Physics. Now see, my high school had an honors physics course and I took it and I did pretty well, but the jump from that course to MIT Intro Physics was jarring. Right from the get-go, we got into the nitty-gritty of physics, we already had a problem set, and I quickly realized I couldn't do this stuff alone. And other students also had the same realization. So I formed a study group, and there was no tension at all. Mind you, I didn't really know the people in my study group yet, but everyone was so open to tackling these problems together, helping each other find answers, and teaching each other the fundamental concepts. Now, I have several theories as to why MIT isn't that competitive. First of all, I think MIT does a great job at intentionally choosing students who are collaborative. This comes through in their essays, their extracurriculars, and their college interview. But secondly, MIT also does a good job of intentionally dampening competition. First, let's talk about the people. For most of the people that I met, academic passion was a greater catalyst than an inherent desire to win. Don't get me wrong, MIT students still have a competitive drive, and I'm sure the world of academia is filled with clashing egos. However, I do feel that we're less abrasive than our neighbors down the river. I especially felt this my freshman year, and I think it's because MIT is almost so difficult that instead of competing against with one another, students imagine themselves competing against the institution itself. It's almost like we're working together on one big team to overcome this huge challenge. And that sort of mindset is pretty refreshing. You know, at times it might feel like we're on a sinking ship, but at least we're on that ship together. Alright, and to my second point about how MIT stifles competition. I'm not saying this in a negative way, I just think they're very intentional about how they reward students or honor students, or how they don't honor students. MIT doesn't have honors at graduation, they don't have class rank, they don't have anything indicating your relative academic strength compared to another student. And this eases a lot of tension. When I was in high school, I was solely focused on being number 1, which I know is not the best mindset, but it consumed a huge part of my identity and a lot of my time. But once I got to college, that worry evaporated. And even if MIT did have rank, I don't think in any world would I be vying for number 1. There are hundreds of far smarter people at that school who deserve that spot. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, we also don't have plus or minus attached to our letter grades. It doesn't matter if you have an A plus or an A minus or an A, everyone's getting an A on their transcript. And if you think that's good, it gets even better, because during our first semester, we didn't even have grades. During freshman fall, MIT has something called Pass No Record, also known as PNR. If you pass the class, great. It shows up as pass on your transcript. And if you fail, it doesn't even appear, and it's almost like you never took it. And with that said, let's move on to reflection number 2. MIT was a lot more humbling than I expected. I spent a large portion of my MIT career getting humbled by the humble. Let me explain. Compared to some nearby schools, MIT has a less pretentious atmosphere. People don't flaunt their accolades, so I'd leave most interactions feeling that I met someone normal. But sometimes the clout or the accolades seep through, resulting in the most humbling experiences. For example, one night my freshman year, I was hanging out at my frat house. And yes, I was in a frat, but MIT frats are nothing like the ones you see in movies or on TV. They're pretty nerdy. But I remember meeting some upperclassmen in the frat. They were playing Super Smash Bros. In the living room. They were playing some music. They were eating some snacks. It felt like a bunch of normal dudes. But the next day, one of the brothers in my class told me that two of the people hanging out in the lounge were IMO medalists. IMO stands for the International Math Olympiad. Yes, those guys were smart and they were fun to hang around, but I did not expect them to be IMO medalists. And I don't mean that in a rude way. It's just to get a medal at the IMO means that you have to be literally one of the best math students in your country. Oh, and then I have this other story from orientation. So I remember going to all of these different orientation events, talking to the students, talking to the upperclassmen, and I had this chat with one junior, or maybe he was a senior at the time, who had sold a startup for tens of millions of dollars. Actually, no, I think the script is wrong. I'm almost certain it was $100 million. That is not a joke. Granted, this guy had to take multiple gap years, so he was a decent amount older than I was. But technically, he still was only just a junior or a senior in college. However, the most humbling experiences aren't just when you hear about the accolades or someone else's accomplishments, it's when you get to see them in action. Do me a favor and search up the MIT Integration Bee, which is an integration competition. I think it'll blow your mind to see how quickly some of these students solve these really complex integrals. It's like their mind just truly works in a different way. Okay, I just realized I am nonstop glazing all of these MIT students. I'm gonna pause now, but I do wanna say one final thing. It might sound like all these interactions would leave you feeling discouraged or unmotivated, but I think in that sort of environment, it leaves you feeling even more inspired. Being surrounded by some of the most ambitious and brightest minds in the world would only reveal to me what was possible, and it would continue pushing me forward. All right, and that leads me to my third reflection. MIT was a lot more demanding than expected. Now I know what you're thinking. Go hard, you didn't think MIT was gonna be demanding? I did. I had braced every ounce of my body for the sheer academic and extracurricular pressure that I would experience. But somehow, that pressure was still greater than what I expected. As former MIT president Jerome Wisner once said, getting an education from MIT is like taking a drink from a fire hose. In fact, we have an actual fire hose in our computer science building to constantly remind us of what the experience is like. But yes, on top of the inherent academic and extracurricular pressure, I think I also made the mistake of overcommitting. I joined a bunch of clubs, maybe even too many clubs, took on some extra classes, and in the middle of all decided to pursue Greek life. The pledge process, although it isn't as intense again as it is at other schools, does take up a lot of time. But MIT felt like this land of endless opportunity, and I wanted to capitalize on everything that was there. Now see, I come from a small public high school. I'm a first-generation student, and although the resources that I had available during high school were decent, they are unparalleled by what I had available during my time in college. I joined the Undergraduate Association, which is like MIT student government, and put together one of our most popular study spaces. I joined the Hackathon Club because I always loved web dev and wanted to continue putting those skills to use. I joined a research journal because I wanted to further my love of writing. I joined a business club because I had always loved entrepreneurship. And at one point, I even joined a dance team, which I quickly dropped right after. The tryouts were okay, but after the first practice, I realized that I was maybe a bit too far outside my comfort zone. And the list goes on. And even though I dropped some commitments to ease my schedule, the pressure from that fire hose never subsided. But I wouldn't trade the experience for the world. By the way, guys, this was a very different type of video. Zero editing at all. If this video does well, I will probably do many more of these story times because this format allows me to put out way more videos and talk to you guys a lot more often. So if you enjoyed this, please just let the YouTube algorithm know. So subscribe if you haven't already, like the video, and leave a meaningful comment. You know, a couple sentences about what you thought, what college you want to go to, and what you think your experience is going to be like. I would love to hear your thoughts, and hopefully I see you back on this couch sometime soon.